barriers have been placed between the pavement and the road to forestall any potential attack, the likes of which we saw here on Saturday night. And following that attack, the identities of some of the victims, the 7 people who were killed, have been released. The first name to be given, a Canadian woman, Christine Archibald. There's a statement from her family which I'll share with you now. They said, "We grieve the loss of our beautiful, loving daughter and sister. She had room in her heart for everyone and believed strongly that every person was to be valued and respected." Excuse me. She lived this belief working in a shelter for the homeless until she moved to Europe to be with her fiancé. She would have had no understanding of the callous cruelty that caused her death. Please honour her by making your community a better place. Volunteer your time and labour or donate to a homeless shelter. Tell them Chrissy sent you. Well, we've had an update on the latest casualty figures in the past hour. Let's turn to Ashish Joshi, who's at King's College Hospital, for more news on that. Ashish, what can you tell us?
NHS England put out a statement a little while ago saying from the 21 people who were originally in intensive care or receiving critical care, that number has been reduced to 18. So that is some good news. 3 people being taken out of critical care today. One of those patients is inside this hospital, the King's College Hospital here in Brixham. This is a major trauma centre where many of the people who were injured in Saturday night's attack were rushed to this hospital. Remember, it was one of the same hospitals that dealt with victims and patients from the Westminster terrorist attack too. So well rehearsed, well drilled, and all of that skill and expertise put into play on Saturday night. I talked to Dr. Malcolm Tinnicliffe. He's the clinical lead for the emergency department here. He was at home when he received the first text telling him a major incident had taken place. This is what he had to say. He was explaining just why his team were on standby, why they're so well rehearsed, and this is what he had to say to me during this interview.
We have 14 patients at King's. 8 remain in critical care, where they are being looked after by our critical care team, surgeons, nurses, physios and other support staff. They remain under treatment and they will remain at King's for a number of days at present.
Still in critical care?
Still in critical care.
Can you explain the nature of the injuries?
The nature of injuries we saw were predominantly stab wounds. It's something that our team here are very used to dealing with, but we also saw some blunt trauma as well, probably as a result of being hit by the van that was driven over London Bridge. We have a number of protocols and pathways that we follow to deal with patients who have been stabbed, and all those were rolled out. Perhaps the most important one being our Code Red protocol, where blood is available for immediate transfusion for a large number of patients.
Did you have enough blood supplies?
Yes, we did. We were very, very well resourced from that point of view.
And what sort of memories did this bring back of the attack in March?
The overwhelming memory really is that we have a fantastic and dedicated team here that would be absolutely 100% capable to deal with this type of event. And that's certainly what the team not only here did at King's, but no doubt throughout other hospitals within London.
What were your biggest challenges over the weekend? What's difficult for you?
It's more the mental side of things and the resilience that the staff need. We often forget that whilst large numbers of staff come in for the actual incident itself, staff members are still needed the following day to run the hospital and return to business as normal. And staff will often feel guilty somewhat if they haven't been involved in direct care of the major incident patients, but they have a really, really important role in maintaining the service we provide at King's and the NHS as a whole provides.
So praise for his staff, his team of medics who are on standby for just such an incident, but acknowledgement there too that this places a great deal of stress and strain on the emergency services. But clearly on Saturday night they managed to rise to the occasion, and the patients here will continue to receive the best of care.
Ashish, thanks very much indeed. Ashish Joshi there with the latest from King's College Hospital. In the next few moments we are expecting the latest briefing to be given by a senior figure at New Scotland Yard. We'll bring it to you. Welcome welcome back to the southern end of London Bridge, and an all too familiar scene in London and elsewhere over the past 3 months. You can see some of the office workers who are rubbing shoulders with members of the security services, people perhaps who knew those who were involved and many who didn't, but simply wanted to come here to reflect on this latest terror attack in London in the UK. As you look at those images, I can bring you the latest numbers on police activity. It's become a political hot potato to some degree today. Jeremy Corbyn has called on the Prime Minister to stand down, to resign. He says she bears some responsibility for what happened and has happened the past 3 months in the UK. There's 3 terror attacks in as many months during her time as Home Secretary. She rebuts that and says there are enough, particularly armed officers, right now. Well, when she entered the Home Office in 2010, Theresa May, there were more than 244,000 police officers in England and Wales. That number's fallen every year since, and in 2011 it dropped by more than 10,000. In 2012 it fell again. A year later there were just over 213,000 officers in the police. In 2014 that number dropped by more than 4,000, and in 2015 it was just higher than 207,000. Last year, in the most recent figures available, the police workforce for England and Wales fell below 200,000 for the first time since 2003. In the Conservative Party manifesto, Theresa May pledged to continue investment in Britain's security services. Of course, the government says that those cuts were a necessary response to the austerity, the financial crisis of 2007 and 2008. None of this matters, of course, to the many scores of police officers who are here on the ground. Their boss, Cressida Dick, the Metropolitan Commissioner, was here a little earlier on, and this is part of what she had to say.
I believe the events of the last 9 weeks, the 3 ghastly attacks that we have suffered in this country, the 5 foiled plots, and the intensity of work of the counter-terrorist network does mean that all of us, and I think the Prime Minister said this yesterday, all of us need to look at the overall strategy, the tactics, the resourcing, and indeed what we are doing with and in our communities.
Well, from Cressida Dick to New Scotland Yard, we're expecting to hear from Commander Matt Chisty, who's Metropolitan Police's hate crime lead. It's slightly delayed starting this media briefing. Let's listen in.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am Commander Chisty. I lead engagement for London, and we've been doing a lot of work over the last few days following the terrible attack at London Bridge and Borough Market with communities. But in particular today, I'd like to talk about the work that's been going on with the Muslim community. As we all know, the Muslim community has a very different number of denominations and sects, and today you've got represented in front of you the entire broad spectrum of Muslim communities, trying to speak as one voice. It is important to also note that we have had 3 attacks across the UK in 3 months, which requires a step change, a different direction, and a different movement to counter the scourge of terrorism, extremism, and hatred that we have in our neighbourhoods and in our communities at present. What I'd like to do is read on behalf of the Muslim community a statement that they have prepared, which shows and signifies that step change, which is honest, it is reflective, it is bold, but essentially it is required. I will also read out a short statement prepared on behalf of the wider community and in particular faith leaders, which also gives a perspective of how we're standing together as one community, supporting each other and trying to keep hate crime and especially Islamophobic crime down by showing the strength of unity and bond between all communities. So I'll start with the community message from our Muslim communities. I apologise, but I'll have to read this. So this is a message by the Muslim community following the London Bridge attack. Excuse me. This terrorist attack is an attack on all communities, including Muslim communities. Every time a terrorist attack takes place, Muslim communities either face or fear a backlash against them. The Muslim community appeals to all sections within their own communities to root out the scourge of terrorism, which hides amongst their own people and masquerades as Islam. The Muslim community is alarmed and concerned that this attack by 3 people, which would have required planning, and yet was not reported. It is the Islamic duty of every Muslim to be loyal to the country in which they live, and we are now asking questions to understand how extremism and hatred has taken hold within some elements of our own communities. Terrorism and extremism is hurting Islam. Muslims must do more to stop such attacks from happening again, and we want to know how we can play a greater role in the future. That was the statement on behalf of the Muslim communities. A wider statement now follows excuse me, by the wider community, and in particular leaders of all faiths. Terrorism affects all communities, and the recent attacks in the UK show the indiscriminate nature of hurt, injury and death to all communities, including Muslim people who feel that their religion has been violated and abused by terrorists. We stand together with our Muslim communities and condemn any type of backlash or Islamophobic attacks. We stand together and support Muslim communities in needing to do much more with local communities to address extremism and terrorism. We would like to convey our thoughts and prayers to the victims and families, and our appreciation to all the emergency services and the public for their brave and professional response. We will show that strong bonds exist between all communities in every ward and neighbourhood across the UK to demonstrate love, respect and care for one another. Thank you very much.
Can we ask one question? You said in that statement that it was not reported, but do we know that for a fact? Do the police know for a fact that wasn't reported? Because I work for CNN and we were told in Manchester by members of the Muslim community that in fact they had flagged up that people in the Muslim community worried about the man who carried out the attack there. So is that a fact now that nobody had reported the 3 attackers?
No. What we're saying here is we're making a broader point where the actual attack itself at this moment in time, unless we get further information, does not appear to have been reported. And the point we're making is, unlike, Ramadan fasting, unlike a single person, a lone wolf type of attack who may keep everything to themselves, when you've got 3 people in concert, necessarily there must have been some discussion around that. And some people, even at the closest point to them, must have known something. And we're saying they had a duty. The Muslim community saying they had that duty to report it.
But what about the people in Manchester who told CNN they did? They did indeed. The members of the old Muslim community said, we flagged this up, and today we have reports that the police in Manchester say they have no record of it.
Okay.
Maybe the Muslim community is doing something, but that the government, the police, the authorities aren't taking note of that.
Okay. But the Manchester point is an issue I think it's been looked into, or maybe looked into. I can't go into that, but we can come back to you on that one. Well, it's very early to understand how the figures are going. But putting the figures to one side, I would like to comment upon the concern and anxiety, the undercurrent that exists within Muslim communities, one of fear and one of anxiety. But also, if we have a look at the sentiment of comment on particularly social media platforms, that is also negative towards Muslim communities, and that adds to a feeling of insecurity. Right. we're not in a position to be able to show that just yet because the figures do take a few days to come in. But we'll be in a better position by the end of the week to absolutely comment on that. I'm not able to confirm or go into that detail at the moment, but there will be statements later by my colleagues in the CT command who will talk about that. But my thoughts around, whenever there's extremism, we will use the full effect of the law to deal with that. And sometimes getting the evidence takes a bit longer. But we have dealt with some of the extremist elements in our community, as you well know, because we're referring to that. So where the law allows, we will not resist in dealing with extremism and hatred.
What reassurances can you give to members of your community that if they call the anti-terror hotline, or go to their local police station and report concerns, that those concerns won't sort of be buried in a pile of paperwork or forgotten?
Well, I'd like to give, thank you very much for that question, I'd like to give a couple of reassurances around that. A, the information is so important, so we will treat that information with respect, we will guarantee anonymity, there'll be a confidential process around that, so you can talk to us with safety. We want to generate confidence within Muslim communities to make sure they feel supported and encouraged and feel safe when they're talking to us. And we'll deal with it in a proportionate way and keep them updated as we do that as well. Sometimes in an operational situation we're not going to be able to share everything, but we'll certainly be able to deal with them in a way that makes them feel very valued. And I can give you those assurances because that's the process that we abide by. Every piece of information does get evaluated. We've got a system of assessing intelligence and information to see what it actually means to the overall picture. So it will be yes. I can't answer that, but I would assume it's not going to be too long because our colleagues are working on that. How many? Only one. Right. We'll have to get the proper information to you on that. Right. When we have any type of police shooting, the Independent Police Complaints Commission, the IPCC, hold a completely impartial investigation, and they'll be doing an investigation around that, and they will be reporting separately, and we will be cooperating, as you'd expect, fully in that. So they will make their report at some stage.
I don't want to delay the point, but just one more question.
Yeah.
You said Muslims must do more, but I can't help but go back to what happened in Manchester. You're saying, like you answered that gentleman's question, that the UK authorities will review all the information. We were told on camera at CNN by members of the Muslim community that they had indeed flagged up members of their own community, and today the police are saying we don't have any record of that. How can we make sense of that? Are people calling the wrong number, or is the UK not sharing information with other UK forces? If you're saying Muslims must do more, but they're doing something that's not being recognized, where does that leave the community?
Well, we need to understand what information was provided, when it was provided, and who to. And we're quite happy to sit down and speak to those people to understand exactly what the process was, including the date, so we can at least have a look at where it may have been and what happened with it, if that information was provided. But I know there's been a very thorough review to find out exactly what information has come in and when it came in, because that's very important to us. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Commander McChesney of the Metropolitan Police are expressing some incredulity that 3 men could carry out this attack within a community, from a community, emanating from a community, and the police learn nothing in advance about it. Let's turn to our Home Affairs correspondent, Mark White, who was listening to part of what was said there by the Metropolitan Police. And there's a tougher line emerging, Mark, I think. Mac Chistey there saying, look, this wasn't just a lone wolf, this was a collection of individuals who had familial and friendship links, and expressing some surprise that nobody made a call.
Yeah, I mean, we are in a totally different place in terms of this particular plot, because it was a plot, it wasn't a lone individual. Sometimes, of course, these attacks could be put down to mental health issues, as we've seen in a few attacks that have happened in the past, but these were a group of individuals plotting together, and there would be potential for other people to pick up on what was going on. People within their community in particular. That's what the senior officer was getting at when he said that people within the Muslim community must take responsibility as well and do more to pass on information.
And you sense that they're dancing on a pin a little bit, because there's that constant fine line between, on the one hand, saying, look, come forward, on the other hand, damning the Muslim community as being the source of this.
Yes, because a lot of what the officer was talking about there as well was about community cohesion. We saw that with the Commissioner Cressida Dick and Sadiq Khan when they arrived here within the last hour, again stressing that this is not a reflection on the Muslim community and calling for communities to come together. But on the other hand, as you say, they want to get that message out to come forward. However, there are reports that at least one of these attackers, people from the community, came forward, raised concerns on a couple of occasions. That will be examined in the days and weeks ahead, according to Cressida Dick. Now it's the investigation.
Mark, I just want to put one point to you before we turn to Martin Brunton, our current correspondent, but that was Mac Chistey's lead on hate crimes. When it comes to the reaction, the public reaction to what's happened both in Manchester and here, we were up in Manchester when Greater Manchester Police said, look, we've had an increase in hate crimes as a result of the attack on the MEN Arena. It had gone up from 23 on the Monday and all day to about double that on the Wednesday. Now, you know, clearly the increase is not a good thing, but if you'd asked people, you'd stop people on the street and said, what's going to be the public reaction to this? You might have expected a more extreme reaction, and that will give some people cause for hope and optimism.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely right. We're talking about incidents of hate crime which are at a very low base. So any increase, of course, is not to be welcomed at all. One hate crime is one hate crime too many. But you're not talking about a significant number of these incidents, and they tend to be fairly low level. Abuse perhaps on a bus or, passing in the street. It's abhorrent, of course it is, but we're not talking about the burning of mosques and that kind of thing. Most people are very measured, except that this has nothing to do with the wider Muslim community. It's an extremist element within that community that has taken this path.
Okay, Mark, thanks very much indeed. Let's go back to Martin Brunton, who was at that press briefing at Scotland Yard, New Scotland Yard, listening to what Mac Chistey had to say. And Martin, you get the impression that the Mets have made a decision. They want to be a bit more muscular in how they invite people to come forward and help them.
Yes, I think we've heard from the commander today, because there have been reports of people within the Barking community saying, well, look, we did call the police, we did phone the anti-terror hotline about one of those individuals, going back, 2 years, I think, in one case, saying that one of them was attempting to brainwash her children, another one talking broadly about this particular individual appearing to become radicalised. I think Mr. Chistey was drawing a distinction between bits of information like that and the fact that, as he says, there were 3 people within this community who were actually plotting an attack, and there must have been people close to them who must have got some inclination of that, and there was no information passed on about that. I mean, he did say that the police was going back and analysing when and from where and what exactly was said in those claims that bits of information were passed on and to see what action was taken. So I think his appearance today is in response to concerns that the police were warned in broad terms, but nothing seems to have been done.
Martin, for now, thanks very much indeed. Martin Brunt there at News.